I am Evan Ziporyn. I am the faculty director of the Center for Art, Science, and Technology. It's great to see you all here, and I mean that both in the general sense and in the specific sense of those of you who came back to hear the following performance. This is actually the first half of the quote-unquote audible panel that joins the other more traditional panels, but since it involves music, we just thought it would be really nice to just have the audible panel be music itself. So we have two really incredible creative musicians who are going to be performing their work for you later on at 6:15. Maya Beiser will be performing her collaboration with Michael Harrison and Bill Morrison called Just Ancient Loops. But I want to introduce Grace Leslie to you now. In terms of the theme of this conference being material, we tried to think about ways in which material in the musical sense could be rethought of other than in the, oh, let's bring out new innovations in stuff being used to generate music, and really get back to the fundamentals of the materials of music. Oddly enough, my introduction to experimental music came when I was 13 years old, and I had this incredible music teacher in high school who taught a class called Materials of Music. And in this class, Materials of Music, we learned about everything other than material. We learned about these malleable objects and shapes and formal designs that were all completely abstract. They all had to do with things like melodies and the form of music, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the things that Betty Jacobson first introduced me to when I had barely hit adolescence was the work of Alvin Lucier. And so she kind of blew our minds by playing I'm Sitting in a Room to a bunch of 13-year-olds sitting in a room. And of course, Alvin was our guest musician 2 years ago at our first symposium, and he performed I Am Sitting in a Room, and he also talked about his piece, Music for Solo Performer, which was one of the earliest and most successful and certainly groundbreaking pieces that involved using brainwaves to generate music. And so it seemed really natural that for this brainwaves being the most latent material that I think could possibly generate music, to bring that up to date in 2017 by bringing somebody else who's making music with brainwaves, and that is Grace Leslie. She's currently a visiting scientist at the Media Lab. She's a composer and a researcher. She will be a Newcomb Fellow at Dartmouth next year, and then she will take a faculty position at Georgia Tech. Those are her credentials for her daily affirmation. But I want to just say a little bit more about what she's going to be doing. So this also relates to Nicholas Negroponte's comments, both his final comments, first about the natural and the artificial becoming one, because, and I'll get back to that, but also his brief comment about biotech as the digital of the future, because in addition to Grace's research work and her musical work, she's very involved in using music both in traditional forms and in terms of music generated by brainwaves in therapeutic situations and working toward wellness. So that directly relates to what Nicholas was telling us. But in terms of natural and artificial, what Grace does is that she's going to be generating the music that you hear basically by three means. One of them, the most traditional means of making music, which is taking a physical object and causing it to vibrate the air around it by blowing through it, and that would be her on her flute. Simultaneously, she's measuring her own brain activity, and her brain waves are in turn triggering synthesized and sampled sounds that she's also created. So she's taking the material of music, pushing air pressure around the room in various ways, at its absolutely most molecular and wave-like way. And this is her piece, Vessels.